Russian missile strikes intensifying in Ukraine. Today, a shopping mall in the middle of the country hit by a barrage that left at least 13 people dead and more than 40 injured. Russian forces also shattering weeks of relative calm in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, firing long-range missiles at the city early Sunday. According to Kyiv's mayor, at least 2 residential buildings were hit. A kindergarten also suffered some damage. Meantime, WNBA star Brittney Griner has been ordered to stand trial in Russia later this week, about 4.5 months after being arrested at an airport on cannabis possession charges while returning to the country to play for a Russian team. She reportedly faces up to 10 years in prison if convicted on those charges. All of this going on against the backdrop of Western leaders meeting in Germany for the annual summit of the G7. Washington correspondent Tom Dempsey joins us once again. Tom, Ukraine is a major focal point of this summit.
Yeah, absolutely, Rudabeh. During this G7 summit in Germany, world leaders, including President Joe Biden, vowed to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And the U.S. also plans to provide new military assistance to Ukraine as this war with Russia really continues to drag on. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky spoke to the group virtually, and he spoke about that big need for support at the moment, and as well as new weapons to come in during this war with Russian forces. The G7 said it would impose new sanctions on Vladimir Putin, as well as raise tariffs on Russian goods as well in response to this conflict. But speaking to news reporters, the German chancellor spoke about the balancing act required responding to this conflict.
We are taking tough decisions, but we are also cautious that we will help the Ukraine as much as is possible, but that we also avoid that there will be a big conflict between Russia and NATO. And this is what is of essence, to be tough and thinking about the necessities of the time we are living in.
And Rudabeh, the G7 world leaders said they would continue to provide military as well as humanitarian assistance to Ukraine as this conflict really drags on.
Okay, Tom, thank you. And joining us now to discuss where things stand with the war in Ukraine, which has now entered its 5th month, as well as where things stand with Brittney Griner, is James Beardley, National Executive Director of the Association of the U.S. Navy. Thank you so much for being here. Russia is shifting its attacks back to the capital, again going after high numbers of civilians. What is the strategy there?
Yeah, they've been very much aggressive on a psychological game, and this is about wearing down the Ukrainian people, but also the West, and showcasing that they can take action wherever they want. One of the reasons the Russians are able to strike in Kyiv or Lviv or in the western areas is that the Ukrainians have no real practical way of shutting down the aerial operations of the Russians. They've said that from day one. If the West was very serious about engaging or helping them engage, that would have been on the table early, but we're 5 months into this. There was no serious discussion about actually allowing the Ukrainians to have air defense missile systems, and anything they do at this point is very late in the game.
And I think I called you James. I apologize. Jason Beardsley, apologies for that. The G7 summit, is that playing into Russia's heightened aggression?
In a way. I mean, Russia, of course, is not designing operations around that, but at the same time, they will take advantage of the spotlight to really showcase, again, you have the picture of the G7 leaders meeting and threatening with words and showing up in photo ops. Meanwhile, their cities being wrecked and leveled inside Ukraine, and the Ukrainians can't get a hold of the kind of weapons they need fast enough, and when they do, they're being bombed in places like depots where they're coming in from Poland into Lviv. Russians just simply fly over that. They've got air control, so that's drones for surveillance, drones for targeting, and drones to pick it up on TV and report it. And so the Ukrainians are at a real disadvantage, and Russia here is pressing every lever of the physical and the optional game, or the optimal game, by showcasing to the world that no one's going to stop them until someone actually arms Ukraine the right way.
And let's talk a little bit about Brittney Griner and what we've learned about her. Her trial now scheduled to start Friday in Russia. What can you tell us about what's going on behind the scenes? Is there a possible prisoner swap in the works?
I mean, if that comes, it's going to be late. This is a show trial. Russia's famous for it. But notice that, you know, the Russian president will play this very coy because he'll just point to the United States. We have our own, quote unquote, show trials in Congress where you don't have a real defense for the January 6th folks. And meanwhile, you've got these people in Russia that are facing extraordinary charges, large scale drug transportation for a vape that had cannabinoid oils in it. Well, again, you start messing with the words, that's large-scale drug transportation. There was nothing of the sorts. But at the same time, many people might even argue what you're using here in the United States to talk about an insurrection is the same kind of thing. So I think Vladimir Putin is being a little coy, and he's showing the West that, hey, we're doing the kind of things that you are now being accused of doing. And it's a little bit of gamesmanship in the end, though. Yes, you'll see things like prisoner swaps and negotiations, but they'll use this to their psychological advantage.
The difference, though, being that she's being held in a Russian prison for months on end. Does this complicate the U.S.?
Just bear in mind that our January 6th folks have been in pretrial incarceration for over 8 months. I think it's up to 2 years now. So it's the same type of circumstance.
All right. Does this complicate the war effort or the United States effort to aid Ukraine in its defense of the Russian invaders?
A little. I mean, that's a tough challenge anyways. It's about supply and logistics. How do you get artillery pieces to the front lines from Poland? And again, if you don't control the skies, the Russians can aerial bombard anything that goes into the country. So that's always going to be tricky. Once the war started, it was always going to be hard to do this. I think the administration's done a great job of putting on paper the programmed equipment to move to Ukraine. But there's corruption, there's war, and then there's casualties on the battlefield. All of those present challenges every day. Bear in mind, before any of that even happens, it's about Congress not just putting money on paper, but spending it. And that takes them a while in normal circumstances. So if they're very serious about this, the Pentagon has got to be very focused about the logistics, operations to get howitzers, military equipment, javelins, drones into the hands of the fighters. That is not easy to do while they're in the middle of a conflict. So it's always going to be a bit of a challenge.
All right, Jason, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time tonight.
You bet.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.